You guys thought I was just going to go after the right on this one, huh? Nah, centrist and corporate Dems can get it too, because some of them have been just about as foolish as the right, except with less outright defense for the atrocities at the border. You'd think that kids in cages, 6 of whom have died in federal custody due to negligence, would be enough to unite neoliberals with leftists, but you thought wrong. In steps MSNBC's Chuck Todd, aka a small southern African mongoose, aka one half of Timon and Pumbaa, aka I didn't think Disney was going for this kind of hyperrealism with the Lion King remake. Timon Todd here has decided that instead of uniting with the incredibly popular congresswoman on an issue that most rational people have come to a consensus on, what better time to poke his head out and compromise with the right, completely distract his audience from the real issue at hand, and focus on pedantic arguments about the Trump admin's blatant human rights violations.
Welcome back. Tonight I'm obsessed with what's happening at our southern border. You can call our government's detention of migrants many things, depending on how you see it. It's a stain on our nation, maybe, a necessary evil to others, a deal with untenable situation, perhaps. But do you know what you can't call it? Take a listen.
Before we take a listen, I'd like to talk about how Chuck is set up for this segment. Opening up, he says he's, quote, obsessed with what's happening at our southern border. Big cap on that one, but straight out of the gate, he softens these crimes against humanity, saying you can call them a stain on our nation or a necessary evil to others, but then implies that you can't call them the literal term used to describe the conditions of the camps. I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll keep saying it. Merriam-Webster's dictionary definition of the term concentration camp is a place where large numbers of people, such as prisoners of war, political prisoners, refugees, or the members of an ethnic or religious minority, are detained or confined under armed guard. This terminology literally defines the facilities in use at our southern border. Imagine choosing to be a radical centrist in the context of the U.S.'s use of concentration camps. Not a good look.
The United States is running concentration camps on our southern border, and that is exactly what they are. They are concentration camps.
That was obviously New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Instagram. After being criticized, Ocasio-Cortez tried to make a distinction between concentration camps and Nazi death camps, where the industrialized mass slaughter of the Holocaust occurred.
What do you mean tried to make a distinction between concentration camps and death camps? The distinction is literally already made by there being 2 different terms. Concentration camps don't necessitate the killing of those detained within them. That's what death camps are for. Concentration camps are usually just one of the first steps to getting to death camps, considering in order to commence the mass slaughter of detainees, you usually have to concentrate them into camps. This is an incredible showing of how Chuck Todd is much more comfortable using euphemisms to describe the heinous acts being committed by the U.S. federal government rather than the term that accurately describes them. If you're made this uncomfortable about using correct terminology, maybe you should spend your time doing segments detailing the horrific conditions of the concentration camps so that corrective action may be taken to remedy the situation, rather than putting out pedantry-filled, semantics-ridden bullshit segments like this. Chuck, you have the entire MSNBC apparatus behind you, investigative reporters, people on the ground, an infrastructure of content delivery that ranks in the top 3, billions of dollars worth of resources at your network's disposal, but instead, you decide to waste everyone's time with this shit. I'm literally a one-man show, producing this content entirely on my own during my off time, sustaining myself with a shit food service job that pays breadcrumbs. Yet I'm capable of doing a better job at pointing out this shit than you are. How? By the way, here's my video detailing the conditions of the camps, which then segues into another video about what put these people in the position they're in the first place, where they have to flee to the United States.
Fair enough, but Congresswoman, tens of thousands were also brutalized, tortured, starved, and ultimately died in concentration camps. Camps like Dachau. If you want to criticize the shameful treatment of people at our southern border, fine. You'll have plenty of company, but be careful comparing them to Nazi concentration camps, because they're not at all comparable, in the slightest.
She didn't compare them to Nazi concentration camps. You literally just said she made the distinction between concentration camps and death camps seconds ago. It's like he's lost in a sea of talking points and is struggling to find his way out. Chuck, the only people who keep invoking Nazi death camps are people like you whose understanding of these terms is so shallow that you seem to think that they were only relevant during the Holocaust. But don't take my word for it. Take the word of Waitman Wade, a Holocaust and genocide studies scholar, quote, "Things can be concentration camps without being Dachau or Auschwitz. Concentration camps in general have always been designed at the most basic level to separate one group of people from another group, usually because the majority group or the creators of the camp deem the people they're putting in it to be dangerous or undesirable in some way. An accurate description of the camps at our border, currently run by an administration whose leader has said that asylum seekers coming to the U.S. are bringing drugs or bringing crime or are rapists. You know, the same person whose actions you're inadvertently providing cover for by shitting on one of the most popular members of Congress in the country. My man is literally trying to sing Hakuna Matata with concentration camp guards.
But here's where it's upsetting as her comment. Some Democrats have been reluctant to condemn her remarks. They don't want to get criticized on Twitter. Fellow New York Congressman Jerry Nadler tweeted in response, "One of the lessons from the Holocaust is never again. We fail to learn that lesson when we don't call out such inhumanity right in front of us." Jerry Nadler surely knows migrant detainment camps are not the same as concentration camps. So why didn't he just say that?
He didn't just say that because the only difference between the migrant detainment camps and concentration camps are the terms your sheepish ass decides to use to describe them because it makes you feel better. If you won't take my or a Holocaust and genocide studies scholar's words for it, maybe you'll be able to find common ground with the thousands of Jewish activists in the Never Again Action movement that are in the streets protesting to make sure that the atrocities of the Holocaust never get a chance to happen again. Or you can take it up with the author of One Long Night, A Global History of Concentration Camps, Andrea Pitzer. She referenced a page of her book on Twitter that details how the Nazis hated it in 1933 when their camps and tactics were compared to those of the Soviets, and that, quote, every country has said that their camps are humane and will be different. But I guess your pampered talking head ass knows better than people who've made it their entire life's work to know better.
Why are we so sheepish calling out people we agree with politically these days? Obviously, this isn't a Democratic Party thing. It's an even bigger problem on the Republican side of the aisle when it comes to President Trump and the reluctance there. Are we really so ensconced in our political bubbles, liberal versus conservative, that we cannot talk about right versus wrong anymore?
The correct classification of the camps at the border as concentration camps is literally making a distinction between right and wrong. This entire segment you've wasted our time with, Chuck, has been doing its best to avoid that conversation. You've literally spent the last 2 minutes trying to argue your way around directly addressing the inhumane conditions that asylum seekers are subject to under federal custody. You know, in the places that are filled at more than double or triple capacity, where people have to stand on toilets to get access to fresh air, where people are denied basic hygiene products, told to drink water from toilets by laughing border agents, where those detained have been dehumanized to the point where you have a private Facebook group filled with current and former CBP agents that are making jokes in light of these people's suffering. Instead of trying to expand your centrist brain by providing cover for these despicable acts, maybe you should use this massive platform you've somehow stumbled your way onto to actually do some fucking good in the world and directly call this shit out for what it fucking is.
Some things are bigger than partisanship, or at least they used to be. And in the interim, the crux of what's truly at stake is lost.
The crux of what's truly at stake is lost because ICE's useful idiots like you have decided it's a much more important use of time to tone police and argue semantics while the lives of migrant children hang in the balance.
What is this country going to do about what's happening at the border in this humanitarian crisis? We'll get to that at some point, I guess, after we have this debate. I have no doubt Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez cares deeply about what's happening at the border. But she just did the people there a tremendous disservice by distracting from their plight.
Please do not try to place the blame for distracting from this humanitarian crisis on the person who actually had the fucking stones to call it out for what it is. The only reason people have become distracted is because morons like you, Chuck, have decided to make frivolous segments like this. You say, what is this country going to do about what's happening at the border in this humanitarian crisis? We'll get to that at some point, I guess, after we're done having this debate. When nobody forced you or anyone else to participate in this manufactured debate in the first place. You could have skipped 90% of this segment to get to this point quicker. You're literally using the plight of asylum seekers to score points against a Democratic congresswoman, you scumbag piece of shit. I swear, Nala should have taken you and Pumbaa's ass out when she had the chance. Anyway, you'll have to excuse me for getting so mad about this particular Chuck Todd segment. Got a lot of heat left in me from that Fox News clip. I just can't stand it when the supposed liberal media tries to distance itself from a very popular congresswoman because when she speaks truth to power, it makes them feel bad. People like Chuck make our movement look bad, and I won't stand idly by when they do that. Imagine trying to find middle ground between people who think it's justified to kidnap and imprison migrant children and those who correctly use terms to call the shit out for what it is. This is your brain on centrism. Thanks so much for watching this segment from episode 1 of the Conure Report. This week's Conure call-out is Space Pirate 3. I appreciate the support. Hope you enjoy your tier 1 sub to my Twitch channel. If you'd like to be the next episode's Conure call-out, follow me on Twitter at ConureCC and retweet my video links when they go live. Don't forget to like this video. To the right of me is the link to subscribe to the channel and follow at ConureCC on everything. Love y'all very much.